And you walk into schools, and I have walked into schools. I'm not sure if your viewers are aware, but I wrote a children's book and did book readings from Guayari to Lavons Hill, and you can walk into classes and there are gaping holes in the floor, because we still have these old wooden structures. We still have two classes divided by a board. We still have girls going into the bathroom, and the bathroom door faces the playground, and there's no light bulb, and you have to use that bathroom. So this is what we still have in what we consider free education. Well, thank you, but no thank you. And you spoke about the $1,000 book grant. I have not found one person that has received the book grant. And I mean, we are coming into August. That can't be something that settles well for a parent. You want to know, and of course you hear it, right? You would hear, yeah, but they put them in a Nike shoe, but they can't afford school books. And what we tend to do is the same thing we do with the criminal elements. There is a small number of persons that may be delinquent, that may be negligent parents. But for the vast majority of parents, it is a situation where they simply cannot make ends meet. I went to school 20, I graduated A-levels more than maybe 25 years ago, right? Whenever it was, right? So, I mean, and my mom was a single mom, and I never had a full bag of textbooks. I don't recall ever having the new books. I can't remember. We used to you could rent a book for $5. Renting a book my daughter hates to borrow books, right? Now we homeschool. So, obviously I'm totally against the education system on the whole, right? But, like she borrows novels. She like people will say, I have novels to borrow and stuff. And she will open it and kind of decide whether she likes it or not, and then ask for a brand new one. Why? Because she wants to highlight, she wants to write, she wants to make it her own. She wants to be able to open it, and if the middle cracks open, so be it. And that is the sign of a child that's really using their school books, right? They're into it and stuff. So renting really does not allow for a child to use their books, to really be into it. I always found that the children who were getting those A's, their books are messy, and it's because they're not focused on keeping the book for the next term, for the next year, for somebody else to have it, to rent it and return it, and they just want to get into it. So that rent a book program really wasn't the best. Then you have workbooks, so you still have to purchase workbooks. I did just a Facebook post just to get an idea, and I mean, this is not even on any kind of group with mothers and stuff, right? This is just my own personal page. And within an hour, there were like some 49 comments, and nobody had book prices under $1,000. Like nobody, right? One mom said, she bought second-hand books, and her price tag was $1,100, right? And that is second-hand books for second year. So this is what, a 7-year-old, a 6-7-year-old.
$1,100 for books for a 7-year-old for
second-hand books, and she bought second-hand books.
Wow!
So she had to buy the new workbooks because, of course, you can't use a second-hand workbook, right? But we also, I mean, and let's be real, there is that textbook, like boys club, that there's a textbook racket where, because we have brilliant young authors that have come up with textbooks, teachers in the system. The textbooks are colorful. They look more like what a homeschool textbook would look like. Because if you put a public school textbook, a Ministry of Education textbook, next to a homeschool curriculum, and you go chalk and cheese, the books are so well designed when you purchase a homeschool curriculum. And I have seen local books, pushing the local curriculum designed by local teachers. They're phenomenal, and they cannot get the book onto the book list because it has to go through the textbook committee. And if you don't know somebody in the textbook committee, well, tough for you.
But it's interesting that you'd raised that point because, as I mentioned in my introduction, the minister.
Yep. The only thing that changes is a line here and a line there, and you put it.
Well, he spoke
Put
about it.
the
He
new
said
edition.
these additions and these alterations actually prevent generational use. And he mentioned
Yep.
that the government would be putting a committee together, and this is in the last budget presentation, to review the situation. They're going to deal with it in
We're
2020.
always reviewing the situation, and nothing comes out of it. Are we still reviewing the Paria tragedy? Nothing comes out of it.
So in that
But
regard,
parents have the power, and they need to take it back.
well, okay, so then that's the whole question. How do parents now take back the power? Because as much as one might argue that, and you made an argument against the education system being free, it's a myth, and you've also said that you are against the education system. I definitely want to touch on that topic, not right now though. However, how do parents now take back the power?
No, I am a. This is stuck on my wall. I know. I'm not sure that your viewers can see it, but that's what protest is. And I think it's unfortunate. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy because people say call a date, Marsha. I'll show up. I said I've been in front of the red times and I can count, and nobody shows up. And so one parent will say, I'm not doing it this term. Full stop. And that poor child will be the only person because we don't have that spirit of unity where 400,000 parents stand and say, I'm not doing it. We are not doing it. So but that is the way, right? You need all the parents to get on board. You certainly need tutors to get on board and make a strong, strong, strong case that the parents, and we have NPTE. So all these there's the on book in book theory, it's supposed to work because you have parents should come on board, NPTA be the voice of the parents, NPTA be the voice, the tutor, and then and that's how it's supposed to work. But it doesn't work that way, and you're not seeing any of the groups that are supposed to be the voice of parents, supposed to be the voice of teachers, really taking a stance. And as with everything else in Trinidad and Tobago, people are afraid of victimization. So you hear, it's funny, just before we had, you called to have me on, I was at, a Lime, and there was a teacher asking, can you do a video for me? And I said, well, that's not how TikTok videos work. Unless you are prepared to give me evidence to stand in court and defend what is said, you're just landing me into a defamation case, And so everybody wants to call, can you raise this issue? Why can't you raise the issue? It doesn't bother me. It bothers you. Well, my job, and that's what you hear all the time, in politics, all the way it goes, who doesn't want to lose a contract with the ministry? Who doesn't want to this? Who doesn't know? So there is this sense of victimization. So everybody murmurs. They complain. I've had teachers say, look at this book. Look at this book, and we want to get it onto the curriculum, and we can't. You can see the book is so much better than the offerings in the public school, that the textbook committee would have authorized. But nobody wants to stand up and speak and be willing to be victimized. And I'm not saying.
You think that there's also, to a certain extent, a psychological aspect of this, where parents may be embarrassed at the fact that they may not be able to purchase textbooks, and even to a great extent, the child in the classroom, with others around them having textbooks or the school supplies and they not having it, that there's also an issue there.
Certainly, of course, the child will be embarrassed. But the truth is, the kids are embarrassed when you have a second-hand book as well, right? There are those issues. Now, of course, I would say that speaks to the character, what you're raising, how you're raising your kids at home. Because I've gone to school where some of the poorest children are the smartest. And you cannot make fun of the child who's coming first in class. That's the bottom line. So, put your head down and do what you have to do. But, once again, what we try to do is base policy on the anomaly. So you would listen to, the Minister of Education or the Minister of Social Development, and they all, or Minister of Sports, when, she says, we sacrificed and you guys don't know how to sacrifice. And you use these examples of you making it out, because I could say that I made it out. On any given day, my mother could not afford Panadol for a headache. And I could say, okay, I made it out, but I am an anomaly. And I cannot base my policy or base my idea of life on me, because I am not the norm and the average. Policies must be based on the average. What is working for the average person? And so this thing about, if you really want to, you go put your head down and you go make it out. That's not that's not what we should be doing. Every child has a right to access education, and in accessing education, it does not mean rotten wooden doors open to you and saying, hey, look, it means let's go into St. Joseph's Convent, Port of Spain. And does that school look like the school in Laventille? Does that school look like the school in Guayari? Do they have the same facilities? That is access, free access to everyone. That's what access looks like.
What about government's efforts with the $1,000 book grants? You said it yourself. You don't know one individual.
Of anyone who's gotten it.
I don't know anyone myself.
Exactly. Well, and I'm happy to hear you say that, because it was just like, okay, am I gonna come here and say that? But I don't know anybody, and that's the truth. And again, you can do polls, that's what we use the media for. And thus far, no one has come forward to say that they have received the book grant. In fact, the responses are no one has received the book grant. They have not received the book grant, and they themselves know of no one, and they would be in the school system. I often say, okay, well, I'm not in the school system. I'm not in a class WhatsApp group or any of it. So I do depend on being on the ground, talking to parents, and they've all said they don't know anyone who's received the book grant.
But do you think that's it's a fine line, isn't it? $1,000 in terms of government assistance for a book grant, and some of the arguments I've heard is that's nowhere near enough. But at the same time, you should be grateful that we are still able to receive a book grant. Again, government's efforts. What do you make about government's efforts in addressing?
I think we
recognize.
Yeah, I think we put plasters on the sore, and that's the problem with all of our policies. It's first of all, it's giving the country fish versus teaching them to fish. So we continue to have this, and that is, I think that's from the get-go. We have been a handout type population, and it has not served us well. It is a gimmick. And that's why I'm not a good politician, I guess, because I'll tell you, we need to get away from that. We need to get away from this handout, this grant system. Yes, a government's responsibility is supposed to take care of the most vulnerable. But ideally, what a government wants to do is lessen the number of the most vulnerable. So a social program is not meant to say, look, here is $1,000 book grant, so that you can use it come election time. A responsible government will make the vulnerable no longer exist, so that you don't need $1,000 book grant in the first place, right? So one, you wouldn't need the $1,000 book grant because you will not have corruption in the textbook industry, so that the textbooks won't be what they are. That's the first place. So what you're doing is are you paying your own friends and financiers, because you're saying, okay, well, we're going to have the textbooks in some corruption scheme, and then we're going to give the most vulnerable money to pay you for being corrupt. That's what's going on. And that's what's the root of all of it in Trinidad and Tobago. And so we're trying to put plasters over these sores, and it's not working. That's the bottom line.
Well, my final question to you, one headline a couple weeks ago, spoke to the fact that a lady was arrested in Port of Spain for stealing books. Again, the Booksellers Association says you would be surprised who is stealing books. It's individuals who look like they can afford it, but they end up stealing it, and it goes for sale elsewhere, whether it be on the streets. Not to get into that, but there also seems to be quite an intriguing reaction. People have actually expressed sympathy, not contempt, for the actions of that individual for stealing textbooks. They sympathize with the individual because of the price of textbooks. Are we going to see these trends happening more and more, where even though people know that stealing is wrong, they actually understand and they sympathize. So they are, we're going to see TNT reacting more and more in a not so negative way.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard Senator Damian Lyda speak about the foreign exchange crisis in Parliament?
Yes, many a times.
And you know what? Because he speaks about it all the time, and he says the government is forcing the business community to go on the black market to access foreign exchange. He says that all the time. He is saying because of the government's failure to address the foreign exchange crisis, businessmen are forced to go on the black market, which would mean they're forced to be illegal. And no one seems to think that that's criminal activity. It's called survival, right? It's a businessman who's worked all his life, sacrificed, he's worked for his business, and due to a lack of foreign exchange, he's facing business closure because the government has mismanaged the foreign exchange. So we have a senator standing in Parliament saying businessmen are forced to go on the black market. They're forced to access foreign exchange illegally. It's the same concept. We have mismanagement all around. And if we continue to mismanage our country, illegal activity will happen. If someone is selling textbooks on the black market, so it is because there is a need. It is because they may not need the books themselves, but they have recognized that there are persons out there who can't afford books. So they've gone, they're stealing it, and now they're selling it at a reasonable price because they ain't paying nothing for it. Right? Now, am I defending it? I can't defend it because wrong is wrong, right? And you have to find a way around it. I said, and I mean, I tell people all the time, which is why I don't buy it. I was a single mother when I was homeschooling my child. So you have to figure it out. We have to have mentorship programs. First of all, I don't even think that single moms should be encouraged to be working 8 to 4 jobs. That's a whole other conversation, because who's supervising your children? Because there is a school ending time gap versus work ending, and all of that. And so we're not addressing the root causes of our problems in children. You put a single mom to work, the child is unsupervised, the child gets into mischief, the child ends up in a life of crime, while the poor mother is simply trying to put food on the table. So can we help moms be at home, gardening, sewing, different ways of earning an income so she can be there when the child gets home to help with homework? So there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen around this entire thing. Rather than giving them $1,000 book grant, can they help the mom start a tomato plant, a tomato field in the back of her yard or something that could then earn the money versus, teaching to fish versus fish?
Yes.
So I don't know that we have the will to really change the country.
Well, Ms. Walker, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and opinions. I really, in due time, would welcome you back to the program. You made a comment there. I'm against the education system, and I would certainly like to expand on that to get your thoughts. But no, we're going to have to end it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping up the conversation. Your job is very important.
Thank you. All the very best. Take care. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, conversations continue. Stay with us.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us once more this morning as we continue the conversations. My next guest was a bit of news that took me by surprise, and I'm wondering if it took many of you by surprise as well. But nevertheless, let's find out exactly why. Wesn Barath's relationship with the United National Congress's leader, Kamala Bossabi-Sessa, seems to have improved quite a bit. To the extent that he has also participated in their pre-budget consultations last week Friday, appearing in Tunapuna. That being said, he never left the UNC, so the headline suggesting that he has returned to the UNC is a bit misleading, but I understand why, given his absence from the platform for, well, the last few years, quite a few years actually. Mr. Barath joins us this morning. Good morning, sir. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Keaton. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for joining us. And Mr. Barath, let me start by saying that you've quoted us saying that Mrs. Kamala Bossabi-Sessa has demonstrated the ultimate leadership by setting differences aside, personal differences aside, working for the greater good of the country. That being said, this relationship, has it been mended over time, or is this something that happened out of the blue?
Well, I've never had any personal issues with Mrs. Bossabi-Sessa. We've remained very cordial and sociable with each other. It's just that we haven't shared the same political ideologies with regard to the party and how the party should be developed. And my views are well known. I've always felt that a political organization should essentially be an institution that outlives the leader of the party, and that members of the party should have a greater voice and be more emboldened to participate in party affairs and the building of the party. So that's been well known, and I refer specifically to the formation of party groups and properly functioning constituency executives, so that when an election bell is rung, the party, in this case the UNC, doesn't really have much campaigning to do because it's already always on election alert, so to speak. So yes, we've had those issues, but the reality is that those views when compared to, or those positions when compared to the problems that the country is facing today, pale really in comparison. So that is the basis on which I've agreed to come back and get involved at the level of the leadership or working with the leadership to actually.
You said you've agreed to return. Is that you were personally asked, that you were asked to return?
Yes, Mrs. Bissessa reached out, and we had a couple of conversations with regard to getting back involved and assisting the party. There are no commitments on either side. It's simply that we both understand the perilous position that the country is in, and we both agreed to put our differences behind, because issues that the country faces are far greater than those issues that we've had between us.
You mentioned in your first response about no personal differences, but differences in respect to political ideology. Do those differences in respect to political ideology remain?
Well, they're a work in progress, and as I said, at the end of the day, the problems that the country faces that we can potentially resolve together are far greater than those ideologies, and those things will come in time.
Now, to quote you, you said recently that you do not believe that another term of this current government is going to do Trinidad any favors. We may never be able to recover if this government gets another term. But you've also said that the United National Congress and the PNM, and this is just a couple of years ago, are more or less two sides of the same coin. Quoting from you from Sunday, this is not a couple of years ago, this is a couple of months ago, this is a month ago. You said most people view both as two sides of the same coin. A month later, you're with the United National Congress once more. How do you think people will react to this sudden change?
Well, at the end of the day, when we talk about political organizations and political parties, things can change within the organizations themselves. And if it is that Mrs. Bissessa is looking to reorganize how the UNC looks and the participation of certain people within the organization, people make organizations, right? People are the faces, the work that the people do within the organization, the faces of those people ultimately are projected on the organization and impact what the organization does and achieves. So this is a start. I genuinely believe that another term of the UN, of the PNM, will lead this country to rack and ruin. And we just have to look at the issues confronting the country in terms of crime. I don't need to expound on that. I mean, over 4,400 people have been murdered since the PNM came into office in 2015. This month alone, I think it's been 60, and for the year already close to 350. And it's not going to improve. In fact, it's getting worse. We're seeing other types of crime, extortion, rape, robbery, home invasions. All of these things are on the rise, and it appears that resolving them are beyond the capacity of the current political organization, the PNM. People are genuinely afraid, but there are other issues as well: the economy and jobs, the debt that we're piling up. We piled up $50 billion worth of debt in the last 9 years, having only piled up $77 billion in the previous 50 or 60 years. Within 9 years, we've built up another $50 billion, and we're borrowing more. So all of those are real serious issues of concern. And I think there comes a time when we must put aside whatever little differences we have and rebuild a political organization to take on the PNM.
I'm curious to know, all these issues that you've spoken of, are you of the opinion that the United National Congress in its current state has the capacity to try and amend these issues or resolve these issues? Are you of the belief that in its current capacity, the UNC can actually make that change, that difference?
Well, as I just said, people make organizations, right? And organizations perform. An organization is, in any organization, whether it's a cricket team, whether it's a church team, whether it's an NGO, whatever it is, ultimately the performance of the organization is as a result of the performance of the people. So if it is that Mrs. Bissessa and the leadership of the party encourages better quality of people to get involved. I mean, I'll tell you now, even I'm of the belief that even what exists today will do a better job than the PNM. But I do believe that Mrs. Bissessa is serious about getting back into government, and I feel that to do that, she will have to attract people of a certain caliber, which in turn will, of course, excite the voters, which hopefully will win a general election, and then we can set about putting the country straight.
You previously said that no commitments have been made, but what capacity or what role do you play in respect to getting the UNC back into power, at least at this point?
So my role, Keaton, is essentially to support whatever the party is doing, to make recommendations in certain spheres, really and truly to assist in building the party from ground up and getting it ready, together with others, like Jillian John and others, to get it ready for an election campaign.
But could you elaborate a bit more as to, there's so many aspects of getting a party ready for an election campaign. If you would kindly elaborate a bit further.
Well, look, energizing an organization ought not to be a very difficult thing, because of course the bare bones are there already, the basic structure is there already. It is really a question of, obviously we've started the budget consultations. I participated in Tuna Puna. I expect to participate in a few more. Really getting the message of the UNC out to the voters, but also trying to attract those voters outside of the traditional base of the party. There is work to be done there. And so I expect a significant part of my work will be involved in that area.
Do you believe that wesn Bharat is still politically attractive to the public of TNT?
Well, ultimately, that's not for me to say, Peter. That is for your viewers and the wider public to determine. I have no reason to doubt that my views are not of any consequence. I'm constantly quoted by the media for my views on national issues. So I suspect there is a level of relevance, but I guess the population will make that determination for me.
But do you yourself actually have any political aspirations? I mean, do you see yourself wanting, and not necessarily, I'm not speaking about the political leader now, but more so you personally wanting to play a role beyond just an election campaign leading up to 2025?
Obviously, look, decisions that determine a country's fate are generally made in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, that is where policy making takes place. That is where that is the seat of government, and that's where major decisions take place. That is where you take the views of the people and you take it to a public forum and you debate them based on what a society is required, what a society requires to grow. Many years ago, an economist, and you will know this name, Adam Smith, in 1776, wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations. And in that book, he talked about, it's an epic, of course, in the economic world. He talked about the role of government. And the role of government he described as threefold. The first was to protect national borders. And in those days, it was from marauding invaders, right? The second one was to protect internally people and its property, their properties. And that would require a properly functioning court system and police system. And the third was to provide basic goods and services to the population, which included education, transportation, infrastructure. None of those things exist in reality today. No one in Trinidad and Tobago can say they either, from a national security perspective, we feel safe because we have drugs and guns and human trafficking. Nobody could say they feel safe internally because of the mayhem and the murders and the rapes and the robberies. And thirdly, our basic infrastructure has broken down. Transportation, and you would know depending on which parts of the country you live coming into Port of Spain, the time frame it takes to come in and then the time frame it takes to go out. Our education system is in a complete mess. 50% of our SEA students are failing. So 250 years later, we've not achieved what Adam Smith said was the role and function of government. And the only way you can do that is in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. You can't do it outside, speaking out on some public pulpit on a regular basis or writing an article in the newspaper. So being in Parliament is very important in determining or fleshing out a vision for the country.
Well, you have your relationship, but again, I stress the point that you never rescinded your membership or revoked your membership in any way in respect to the United National Congress, and likewise, the party never did such. So it's not a matter of returning to the United National Congress, but a relationship that has mended or is on the mend. But, again, looking at what you said just a month ago, you said what is required is a new political movement, a phoenix from the ashes. And I'm curious to know as to whether or not you believe that other political entities, we are seeing new alliances in the making, we are seeing new political parties being born, are such a political movement that TNT requires. You have now had a greater relationship with the United National Congress, but do you think it would have been more beneficial if your role was elsewhere?
I think that when I talk about a phoenix rising from the ashes, I mean a new political ideology. And political parties can reinvent themselves over a period of time. We saw in the United Kingdom many, many years ago, we saw Labour transform from Labour to New Labour. You remember that under Tony Blair. And it was the same party, but with a reinvigorated ideology of what was necessary. And it was also a repositioning of the party and what the party looked like. So it moved away from the old imagery of Michael Foot and others to Tony Blair. It almost became a lot more conservative in its outlook than Labour. And what did that do? That attracted voters who traditionally did not vote for Labour, who saw Labour as a party that represented coal miners, essentially, into a party that could represent a wider group of people. And as a result, Labour was in office for maybe 3 terms, I think. So that's what I talk about when I talk about a phoenix rising from the, and that can happen within the United National Congress because we now need to start to cater for a much younger level of participation, a much younger level of empowerment. People like myself are essentially just a bridge to the next generation. So we've got to create that environment if we want the party to have longevity. We've got to create that environment for those young people to want to get involved. And once they're involved, to allow them to properly participate. So that's what I talk about. Whether it requires a new party or a new ideology within the same party, ultimately the benefits will be the same for the population.
No, I don't know, and I don't think that you would speak publicly about the conversations between yourself and Mrs. Kamla Bussard-Bissessar. However, you this morning you've spoken about you have noticed some efforts, and in respect to shifting political ideology, you're of the opinion that Mrs. Kamla Bussard-Bissessar genuinely wants to return to government in 2025 and is making that effort or pushes for such. Could you please now tell us, as per what she has said to you, that has convinced you that such efforts are being made, that the political ideology of the United National Congress is certainly shifting?
Well, as you said, those are private conversations, right? But what I will say is that what has convinced me is, first of all, Mrs. Bissessar has reached out. That is being very magnanimous of her to have reached out. She didn't have to do that, so she's done that. I was on the platform on Friday speaking about economic issues on behalf of the party. I feel genuinely you asked me whether or not she wants to get back into government. I don't think that she'd be going through what she's going through as opposition leader and leader of and political leader of the party if she didn't intend to go back into government and wasn't serious about it. Being political leader of an organization and leader of the opposition is quite a rigorous task to be doing it, and particularly be doing it for such a long time. So I have every reason to believe, though, I have no reason to believe that she's not serious about getting back into government. The question will be how quickly we can ramp up the activities of the party and get it ready for a general election. I am not of the belief that any political organization should only get ready when an election bell is rung. I believe that we should be ready all the time and be fully prepared for when that bell is rung to actually get the troops in on the ground and doing what they need to do.
Do you genuinely believe that Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar is the right person to lead the United National Congress into the next general elections, and by extension, be the next person to lead, to govern Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, our reality is that she is the political leader of the United National Congress, and she was only recently democratically elected by the membership of the party, whether we like it or not. So as a result, she is the person taking the party forward. There's no ifs or buts about it, regardless of what my thoughts are. But I do believe, yes, currently she's the best person within the fold of the organization to take the party forward and to win a general election. Now, ultimately, we'll be judged by the population. And what does the population want? The population wants to see certain people being brought forward that can put positions forward that will relieve the problems that the general population is suffering. The issues of crime, how are we going to deal with it, and who's going to deal with it? The issues of the economy, how are we going to deal with it? How are we going to create new jobs? Who are the people? Who are the front line? Who are the 5 or 6 people that will really stir the imagination of the population when they appear on a UNC platform? That's what I think people want to see, standing behind Mrs. Bissessar.
Well, I do believe that it's early days, so the extent of this relationship or the role of which you will play will soon be known a bit more, whether to you or to the public. But at this point, Mr. Barrett, I want to thank you very much for joining me on the program and wishing you all the very best, and let's see what happens.
Thank you, Keaton. I appreciate the opportunity.
All the very best to you, sir. Take care. Keep
My pleasure. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Barrett said, it's really up to you to decide. It's really up to you to judge whether or not you believe that he's still politically attractive, and by extension, whether or not the United National Congress is the best option to lead the country in 2025. An election, of course, a general election is due within the next year, and we're counting on month by month now. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on the program. We will return shortly. Stay with us.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Passenger, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian. outside of the Sunday
like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Here is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 2-year-old boy dies while playing in an inflatable pool. Cricket West Indies announces return of Deandra Dottin to international cricket. Regionally, battery energy storage systems coming to Barbados. And internationally, 6-week abortion ban takes effect in Iowa. Now for the details. Police are investigating the death of a 2-year-old boy who died while playing in an inflatable swimming pool. The deceased has been identified as Kamarian Wilson of Upper Erica Street, Rock City, Laventille. Police were told that yesterday afternoon, young Kamarian and other children, including a 12-year-old, were said to be playing in a plastic blower pool in the backyard of the home of a relative along Upper Eric Street. At the time, the supervising adult was said to be in the kitchen cooking. Around 2:40 p.m., the older boy alerted the adults at the home that young Kamarian was not breathing. Upon checking, they found the boy unresponsive in the pool. An alarm was raised and young Kamarian was rushed to the Port of Spain General Hospital. However, he was soon pronounced dead. A team of officers from the Homicide Bureau, as well as the Port of Spain Division led by Inspector Jerry, responded. Statements are expected to be taken from the parents of the young boy as well as others who were present. A post-mortem has been ordered in keeping with the investigatory process. However, police suspect that young Kamarian may have drowned. Corporal Cromwell is continuing inquiries. More on this as it becomes available. St. John's Antigua Cricket West Indies is delighted to announce that Deandra Dottin has decided to come out of retirement and will be available for selection to represent the West Indies women's international cricket team once again. In a heartfelt letter to CWI, Dottin expressed her enthusiasm to return to the game, stating representing West Indies in international cricket has always been a matter of great pride and passion for me. Deandra Dottin, who will lead the Trinbago Knight Riders women's team for the 3rd consecutive year in the upcoming WCPL tournament, last played for West Indies in 2022. She has 270 international matches across ODI and T20I. In 2010, she scored the first women's T20I century. Last month, MCC awarded Dottin with honorary life membership of the club. West Indies women will have a camp in August 2024. The players will also be engaged in the CPL next month. The next international assignment will be the T20 World Cup in Bangladesh from October 2nd to the 19th, 2024. Regionally, Barbados is a step closer to launching its first procurement project for battery energy storage systems to support the grid and unlock stalled solar PV connections. The Ministry of Energy and Business is currently hosting a 3-day procurement design workshop with key stakeholders to discuss and make critical decisions with regarding to procuring battery energy storage systems. Barbados has reached the maximum capacity of the electric grid, and the Barbados Light and Power Company has been advising that it is unable to connect homeowners and residential PV systems to the grid without the addition of storage. The workshop is the culmination of the outputs of a consortium of experts in storage systems who began supporting Barbados at the beginning of 2024 to address the gridlock challenge and advance the renewable energy transition. In many ways, this is a watershed moment that many have been waiting for. Internationally, a law that bans almost all abortions after 6 weeks has taken effect in the U.S. state of Iowa. The legislation allows the procedure until early signs of cardiac activity can be detected in a fetus or embryo, with exceptions in cases of rape, incest, fetal abnormalities, and when the mother's life is in danger. The Republican-enacted ban was blocked after its passage last year before being upheld by the state's highest court last month. It is among the most restrictive policies to be enforced since the Americans lost the national right to abortion access 2 years ago. Well, that's your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for watching.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us this morning as we continue the conversation. Focusing on some good news. Let's set aside all the politics for a moment and focus on the efforts being made by the young people of TNT. I Am Movement, an environmental-based NGO here in TNT, focusing on positive environmental impact. Please forgive the noise in the background. I don't know what somebody's doing this time of the morning. But anyway, they've actually had a symbolic character parade through the streets of Port of Spain between 7:30 and 9:30 last week. It was a Moko Jumbi made of actually single-use plastics. I'm joined this morning by the director of I Am Movement, and she is with us. Good morning, Miss Nicole Bovell-Pannington. Welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Keaton. Thank you for having me. Really honored to be here for the opportunity to chat with you and your audience about what the work that we do at I Am Movement.
Well, we're just going to take a quick break here. We've got some technical problems. We're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to continue with the conversation. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no problem.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Talk about the shortest introduction ever on live television. It does an injustice, really, but nevertheless, our guest, Miss Nicole Bovell-Paddington, is still with us, and I thank her very much for joining us on the program this morning. Welcome back, Miss Bovell-Paddington. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks again for having me, Keaton. I get to say thank you twice, that's all, and for the opportunity to chat with you and your audience.
I've said thank you about 3 times already, so let's get into the conversation, starting with the NGO itself, I Movement. Please speak to us a bit about the organization itself.
Sure. I Movement was founded in 2014 by a group of young, passionate people who wanted to make a positive change regarding social and environmental matters. So 2014, so that means this year is actually our 10th year in existence. Over the years, we've done a lot of great work, partnered with local and international organizations to just do various different types of work in the climate, environmental, and social space, making positive impact. Our goal is really to facilitate and enlighten and empower the relationship between people and the environment. So we are very progressive, and we collaborate with private, public, civil society to do our work. And it's all really exciting stuff. We're a group of young, passionate, brilliant people. We love what we do, and we really want to make a positive change in Trinidad and also regionally and globally.
And so this is your 10th year in existence. So, what has I Movement's impact been over the last 10 years? What have they been able to achieve over the last 10 years?
That is a great question. And to capture it all in one statement is difficult to do. I have to say that we have piloted some amazing programs. One of the programs that we are most proud of and we've replicated in Trinidad, Tobago, up the islands, is our vetiver education and empowerment program. I'm not sure if you're aware of vetiver, but it's what we call our miracle plant. Are you aware of it? Okay, good.
People thought it was only used for perfumes. It's a lot more than that.
A lot of people, I'm impressed that you know that it was used for perfumes. A lot of people don't know that. Basically, what we promote vetiver for is as a green infrastructure tool for the most part. So we basically go out to communities all across the country and we teach people about planting and propagating vetiver plants for mainly the use of stabilizing hillsides, preventing erosion and so on. So I'll give you a little information about this amazing plant. So it has a very dense and long rooting system. So these roots grow up to like 10 feet deep. And they are very fibrous, and it grows into the soil. And basically what they do when they plant it in a hedgerow foundation, they stabilize the hillsides. So there are a lot of communities living on sloping land, on hillsides in the country, and their properties are prone to landslips. Every rainy season we see this. And basically vetiver is a very economical and green solution for preventing landslides. So we teach people how to do that, and it basically saves a lot of people the cost of a retaining wall, which, as you know, is extremely expensive. And in addition to that, part of what we call the VEEP program is we also teach people, particularly in underprivileged communities, how to use they can use the roots, root bundles. The old people know about it. They put it in their cupboards and it keeps insects and bugs away. But also the leaves can be used to make different types of handicrafts. And we teach people how to make handicrafts, which in turn can provide a sustainable form of livelihoods for a lot of women, underprivileged people. Our migrant communities are very involved. So it's amazing. It's an amazing tool and a sustainable effort all around.
I'm so happy. I was actually really proud when you mentioned vetiver, because honestly, it's something that needs greater promotion in TNT, and to know that I Movement has really taken up such a campaign is rather incredible, So, I'm really, really glad to hear that, very proud indeed. But as you mentioned, there's so many initiatives that iMovement finds themselves involved in, and with July, we're the second to last day of the month, but July was a plastic-free month, and you had a campaign focused on that as well. Please tell us more about that campaign.
Yeah, so Plastic Free July is actually a global movement. If you go and Google it online, it's something being done across the world. And so iMovement sort of embraced that for July here and tagged on to the movement. Because as we know, plastics are a problem here, single-use plastics in particular. Now, we're not saying don't use plastics, but we really need to be conscious about how much single-use plastics in particular we consume. So that was the idea, just to bring about awareness. I feel like a lot of us are aware, but you know, it's good to keep the awareness at the forefront of people's mind so that they can recognize, hey, this is a problem, and maybe I can make better choices to prevent this. As we know, plastics take 999 years to decompose. So if we continue the consumption at the rate, we really have a very big problem. I'll give you a little statistic, Keaton. The Caribbean Sea is the second most plastic contaminated sea in the world behind the Mediterranean.
Okay, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't take a genius. When we go to the beach, we go by the river. Yeah, some people go down the islands after a rain. It's honestly shameful and sad to see the amount of plastic waste in our natural environment. And if you think we're affected, think about the biodiversity, the animals, the plants.
So then, I know it's Plastic Free July. I know it's a global movement, but isn't this something that we should, at least in the Caribbean, prioritize for ourselves? Like recycling, for example. Isn't this something that needs to become a priority?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are aware of that. And, you know, as we walked through the streets of Port of Spain last week, we engaged with a lot of members of the public, even vendors who were selling, you know, drinks and so on, which, you know, contribute to the problem. They themselves acknowledge that this is a problem. And they are happy for support in terms of for solutions. You know, one lady, one vendor, she spoke about 5 minutes of rain in Port of Spain, and the drains are full of plastic bottles and different type plastic bags and so on. So, you know, being aware of that and having a conversation is the first step towards implementing solutions. And, you know, we could talk a little bit about solutions if you like, but it's really about making better choices in terms of the way that we consume. You know, it's a matter of you have a choice when you go to buy vegetables in town or at the market. Take your reusable shopping bag so you don't have a ton of plastic bags when you get home. Take your water to work in a reusable bottle. You know, refuse when you go to buy fast food. You can refuse the fork because you're pretty much. A lot of times we're going back home or to our office where there are forks that we can wash and reuse. So it's little choices like that, and every little bit adds up. And one of the, actually, when we walked through town last week with our Moko Jambi, you know, we were talking to people and we were saying that, you know, it's little things, and every little bit adds up, and it matters. It counts towards something bigger. And we had a sign painted that said, I wish we had some visuals to show you. We had a sign painted that said, it's just one plastic bottle, said 1.5 million people. So just think about how quickly all of that waste adds up if you continue consuming. It's just not sustainable.
Actually, tell me more about this Moko Jambi character and the concept behind the Moko Jambi character.
So, well, everybody loves a Moko. We worked with Moko Titi and Little Jabs, who were gracious enough. Jillian, I can't stop thanking you. Jillian pulled together this Moko costume for us in no time. and it was made out of single-use plastic. So we had plastic bottles, plastic bags, forks, and so on. We got microplastics. So from a recycling facility, Flying Tree Environmental, they gave us some chipped up plastic that we coated his hat and his top with. And I mean, you know, you can't miss a Moko Jambi. And the whole point of it was to attract attention and to get the public to engage with the character and to pay attention to the message. So, you know, it was quite a sight, people going to work on a random Thursday morning, seeing a Moko Jambi all in plastic walking through the streets. And I was walking through with a boombox because you can't have a Moko Jambi without music. And I was like, yeah, this is why, this is what I'm meant to do. So it was fun. The little kids came and engaged, took pictures. We got some amazing photos with him standing in some really iconic spots in Port of Spain, the Brian Lara Promenade. It was, you know, just amazing, the public, and everybody was really receptive and supportive of the message.
You did get a good response from the public. The public did come and interact and engage.
Yeah, we did for sure. You know, kids in particular, of course. I mean, the Moko Jambis are so majestic, you know, so it was just an opportunity. And talking to the guys, they were happy to support the initiative because, you know, it's a problem. And there's so much that we can do. Everyone, if we just are aware of it and we make better choices, it really makes a massive impact.
So let's speak about solutions now and how people can reduce their use of single-use plastics. You gave some examples earlier, like, for example, going to, you know, when you're purchasing food out there, you don't need the plastic fork. But what are some ways we can make a difference?
You know, and I'm glad you asked the right question, Keaton, because a lot of people are so focused on recycling. But you asked the question, how can we change our consumption to reduce? And that is really the best method. We simply make better choices. You go to the grocery and there's vinegar in a plastic bottle and there's vinegar in a glass bottle. Choose the glass bottle because the glass is actually easier to recycle. And it's astounding that, you know, a lot of people lean on recycling, but only a very, very small percentage of plastics are successfully recycled. So, you know, it's just consume less if you can, use reusable things. And if it is that, you know, there's some situations where you really would like a disposable option. You're going for a picnic, you're going by the beach, you're not going to take your plates from your kitchen sink, right? If possible, choose something that's biodegradable or compostable. We work very closely with a company called Hello Green, and they provide compostable, disposable food packaging and plates and forks and so on. There's bamboo stuff. They're now reusable stainless steel straws that you can walk around with. So it's just an awareness, and we feel that if, you know, people know better, you do better, you make the better choices. So that's basically, I think, the solution. I mean, every weekend I go to the market, and every time I buy something, you know, the vendor automatically puts it in a plastic bag. And every time I have to say, no plastic bag, thank you. Just refuse the plastic bags. Take your own reusable shopping bag. It cuts down. I remember there was one time I came home, I forgot my bags, and I had to take the plastic bags. And by the time I unpacked all my fruits and veggies, there's this pile of plastic on my counter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to forget my bags again. Serious moral dilemmas.
So it's you know, it's really a massive of changing our habits.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you're conscious of your habits, and it takes time. Our habits are difficult to change, and that's one of the things at iMovement we recognize. So one of the things that we're working on is it's called behavioral science, and it's little things that get people just to make very small changes. But when millions of people make a small change, it has a massive impact. So one person makes a change within their little community, all of that adds up to make this really big overall change for our country. And it's really, you know, it's for the positive. Our kids deserve to go by the river and swim without having to, you know, walk over plastic bottles, and go to the beaches and not have to clear a little spots to see sand. You know what I mean? It's covered in plastic. So
I was able to check out your social media page, and there's actually a plastic-free checklist that is available for people to utilize.
yeah, and I would encourage everyone to go on to our social media pages. We always have a lot of fun and engaging content. As we wrap up Plastic Free July and we are going into August, the focus will be on circular economy. And we also always have a lot of fun and engaging ways for people to just become more aware and conscious. And again, the little changes in behavior make massive impacts. So the handle is I Am Movement. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, I believe. Yeah, so that's where we post most of our social content.
I think your social content in itself is rather incredible. I mean, I've learned a lot, just scrolling through social media. In that respect, being said that only 10% of the plastics we use in TNT are recycled, the rest ends up in our landfill. You said at the beginning of the program, it takes 999 years for plastics to break down. So it's just building up in TNT. So I Am Movement is really doing an incredible amount of work and really not just educating the public, but also, showing them the way. It's beyond just education and awareness. But how could people get more involved with I Am Movement rather than just checking out the social media pages? How can they get more involved?
I appreciate what you said, Keaton. We really do try hard to make a difference. And yes, we encourage people to get involved. I mean, there's simply taking personal responsibility is a way of being involved. That's the way that you join a movement. If you start making a change in the way that you go about your daily life and you make smarter choices in terms of single-use plastics and you choose reusable options or biodegradable options, you're more conscious about how you consume energy, and you're more basically just conscientious about the environmental impact all of your daily activities have. That's one way to be involved. If you want to be more formally involved and to volunteer, we do have a volunteer group. You can just reach out to us on the socials and we add you to the WhatsApp group. Whenever we have events, we reach out to our volunteers. In fact, last week, one of your team members came out. He's one of our volunteers. That's Joash. Joash, thanks again for coming out. He took some amazing pictures of the Mokojambi and Port of Spain. And he was at a recent event that we did on National Day of Caring a month ago. So yeah, we do reach out to our volunteers when we do different activities. They come out and we really value them. So just reach out on the socials. We're always happy for help.
Indeed. And yes, well done, Joash. We're really, really doing a lot there. Thank you very much, Miss Nicole Bovell-Paddington, for joining us on AM Prime this morning. We appreciate your time, but we appreciate the entire team behind I Am Movement and all the volunteers who are working to make a difference, to make change. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kitash. Have a great day.
Indeed, and I look forward to the next campaign. I mean, Vesive is incredible. Plastics Free July. Can't wait for the next campaign.
Yeah, you're welcome to come and participate anytime.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks very much. You'll see Josh and I there.
Yeah.
Take care. All the very best.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, there's always some good happening, and at times we may not necessarily see it all or recognize it all, but we are proud, we are glad that we can raise that level of awareness. Now, stressing the point about vetiver, because it's incredible what nature has provided for us. Solutions are right there in front of us. Let's utilize it. Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thank you very much for my guests for their contributions to the discussion, and of course for really pushing for TNT to be a better place. We hope that's always the intention, at least. I'm Keaton Shaw, and thank you very much to my dream team in Ryan Gomez-Burke and Mile Wood. Today is a good day to have a good day, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond
want
to me. Respond to me. How you would respond to me?
The first question I'd ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Young at heart, purpose-driven, patriot even. When you like to party, but are still passionate about discussing important issues, the only place where your needs will be met is WESN Content Capital.
Killed as police tried to break up demonstrations triggered by a hotly disputed election result that gave the President, Nicolas Maduro, a third term in office. This despite widespread accusations of fraud and without the government releasing the full vote counts.
It's not fair. How long are they going to attack us for?
We're Venezuelans and they want to kill us because we're demonstrating for the truth. It isn't fair. For how much longer will we have to suffer for all of this?
I have a son and I don't want him to suffer the same fate. I reject what the police are doing. Look at what they are doing. Why? Because we're standing up for the truth.
And far-right Israeli protesters have broken into 2 military compounds after investigators arrived to question soldiers about the suspected abuse of a Palestinian prisoner. Officials are investigating 9 soldiers for allegedly abusing a prisoner captured from Gaza and who's said to be a member of the elite unit of Hamas. Israel's military chief calling the protests anarchy and saying that the investigation is necessary to uphold the military's honour. And this all coming as the world is waiting to see how Israel will respond to what was the deadliest cross-border incident in months of exchanges of fire between its forces and the Lebanese Shia militant group Hezbollah. 12 teenagers and children were killed in an Arab Druze town last weekend in the annexed Golan Heights after a rocket attack believed to be fired by Hezbollah. There are fears that this attack could result in an all-out regional war. In the meantime, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the location.
These children are our children. They are the children of us all. The state of Israel cannot and will not let it pass. A response will come, and it will be severe.
And joining me now is Simon Mabon, a Middle East specialist at the UK's Lancaster University. Simon, thank you for your time. When it comes to a regional war, both sides resemble America and Russia during the Cold War, as in there's always the threat, but neither Israel or Hezbollah really want an all-out war, do they?
No, they don't. I don't think anyone wants an all-out war. The devastation of that would be catastrophic. The repercussions of it would be huge. It runs the risk of pulling in lots of different states in the region, the neighboring states, other militias that are operating across the region. It runs the risk of involving the US, the UK, and many others. So nobody wants this to escalate. There is a lot of diplomatic pressure being put on all sides to ensure that things do not escalate right now. But I don't think either the Israelis nor Hezbollah, and certainly not others in Lebanon, want to see this escalating further.
Do you think that rocket was actually aimed for Majal Sham, or was it an accident?
Well, I can't imagine that anyone would deliberately target children. I think it's a truly abhorrent thing to do. Whether they deliberately targeted what they see as an occupied village in the Golan Heights, I'm not sure, because Hezbollah is ultimately denying that it was them. They are denying that they were involved in this. But it seems pretty clear that the Israelis believe it was Hezbollah. So it's a bit of a tricky one.
So with this in mind, where does this leave Israel in terms of options?
Well, we know that Benjamin Netanyahu has been given the right to take the call as to what the appropriate response will and should be. So, given everything that we know about Mr. Netanyahu, he takes a very strong, firm stance against any type of terror attacks. He protects Israeli lives, and that suggests that there will be a firm response against Hezbollah. But we've already seen types of responses against Hezbollah attacks against Israel. So it risks increasing this tit-for-tat escalation that we've been seeing in the months since the October 7 attacks and what's happened in Gaza. So I worry that this will contribute to an increase, not necessarily a dramatic regional conflict, but it will certainly have a vociferous and firm response that will devastate the lives of ordinary people in Lebanon, which runs the risk of then having a knock-on impact in Israel. So there has to be some type of diplomatic solution here, because this cannot continue in the way that it's going.
Simon Mabon from Lancaster University in the UK. We're going to leave it there. I do apologise for the audio quality there, viewers. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
And landslides in the southern Indian state of Kerala are likely to have trapped hundreds of people. Over 90 people have been confirmed to have been killed so far, according to local authorities. Landslides are believed to have been caused by the collapse of a major bridge in the region. A search and rescue operation continues. Time now for our daily business segment. I'm joined in the studio by Charles Pellegrin. Hello, Charles.
Hi, Annette.
And Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, is currently on a visit to China, and trade issues, not surprisingly, high on the agenda.
Absolutely. China is Italy's second largest non-EU trading partner after the United States, so this is an important relationship to nurture for Italy. But Meloni is looking to tread carefully. Last year, she withdrew Italy's participation in China's signature global trade and infrastructure project known as the Belt and Road Initiative, calling it a serious mistake because of perceived imbalances that favor Beijing over any other signatories, and aligning herself with Washington and Brussels. So Italy is now looking to boost trade ties with China outside of that framework. Last year, two-way trade between Italy and China was worth around 60 billion euros, but 41 billion of that was made of Chinese exports to Italy, while Italian goods heading to China were only worth about 19 billion euros. That's why she took part in an Italy-China business forum on Sunday with companies like tire maker Pirelli, energy group ENI, or fashion brand Dolce & Gabbana, who are all looking to increase their sales and presence in the Middle Kingdom. And it's also why Italy and China signed a 3-year economic cooperation deal on sectors like electric vehicles and renewable energy. Let's listen in to Meloni speaking to President Xi Jinping on Monday.
With this trip, we are launching a 3-year action plan that we've signed with the government that defines the next 3 years of our bilateral cooperation, with the aim of enhancing the work that we've already done, but also exploring new forms of cooperation, while at the same time working towards a balancing of trade relations. And from this point of view, I think that Italy can also play an important role in relations with the European Union, and also here with the attempt to create trade relations that are as balanced as possible.
Well, Meloni says Rome can work as some sort of go-between or mediator between Beijing and the European Union. The same trade imbalance that exists between Italy and China exists between the wider EU bloc and China, and it has been even more accentuated in the post-COVID years, as weak domestic demand in China means that producers there are increasingly looking overseas to sell the goods they are unable to sell at home. This is what has been defined as overcapacity, and this is what has partly led the EU to launch a probe and set provisional tariffs on Chinese electric cars entering the common market, which it considers are sold at unfair prices. In retaliation, China has launched its own investigations on EU products, for like pork, for instance. And on this trip, Meloni has positioned herself as being able to mediate discussions and potentially avert a trade war, while Rome has struck out on its own to sign a deal with Beijing before. Becoming that mediator could prove tricky, as Meloni doesn't hold a huge amount of sway on EU trade policy, as she had voted against EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen's renomination at the head of the Commission. Meloni doesn't hold a huge amount of sway, as I said. To move on, sorry, just having a few issues here. She is trying to patch things up with Xi Jinping. She's also been a vocal supporter of the EU tariffs on Chinese EVs, and under her watch, a Chinese state-owned company was stopped from taking full control of Italian tire maker giant Pirelli, all of which will make her goal of being a bridge between the EU and China, or her goal of boosting Italy-China trade that much harder. So really a tough gamble there for Giorgia Meloni on her 5-day trip to China.
Indeed, Charles, just bear with us because we're having some technical issues here. Thanks for that, Charles. In the meantime, the US President Joe Biden has said that there is a need to rethink the term of Supreme Court justices. This, as he also argues, that it's also a need for a code of ethics for those serving on the Supreme Court. His remarks being made at a time that American citizens are losing confidence in the Supreme Court.
I have great respect for our
They play an influential role in American life on everything from abortion to student loans, gun rights and the environment. The 9 US Supreme Court justices currently serve lifetime appointments, but President Joe Biden wants this to change. In an opinion piece for the Washington Post, the US president urged Congress to make sweeping changes to the court, which he said would, quote, restore trust and accountability to the institution. They include establishing an 18-year term limit for the justices and a binding ethics code that would oblige them to disclose gifts and refrain from overt political activities. Biden is also calling for a constitutional amendment that would scrap presidential immunity, a move that would reverse a recent Supreme Court ruling involving former President Donald Trump. The conservative-leaning court has ruled on a series of historic cases in recent years, including a shock decision in 2022 that overturned the 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling protecting the right to abortion. It has also faced accusations of judicial ethics violations. In a statement, Vice President Kamala Harris said the court was facing a, quote, crisis of confidence and voiced her support for the proposed reforms.
There is a clear crisis of confidence facing the Supreme Court, as its fairness has been called into question after numerous ethics scandals and decision after decision overturning long-standing precedent. These popular reforms will help to restore confidence in the court, strengthen our democracy, and ensure no one is above the law.
However, the proposals drew sharp criticism from Republicans, including US House Speaker Mike Johnson.
It is telling that Democrats want to change the system that has guided our nation since its founding, simply because they disagree with some of the court's recent decisions. This dangerous gambit of the Biden-Harris administration is dead on arrival in the House.
Although opposition from Republicans in Congress mean they have a slim chance of being enacted, Biden's proposals come as opinion polls indicate that public confidence in the Supreme Court is falling.
Now to the Paris Olympics, and one problem potentially impacting athletes and fans today is the weather. Not because of the rain that we witnessed last week, but because a mini heat wave is expected with highs of 35 degrees Celsius. Oliver Ferry has a story.
Just days after its opening ceremony was marred by heavy rain, the Paris Olympics is grappling with a different weather problem, the first heat wave of the summer. Temperatures are expected to reach 35 degrees on Tuesday. There are no plans as of yet to postpone any events because of the heat, even those in the south of France where temperatures of 40 degrees are forecast. But that could change.
Each international federation has its own tolerance level for athletes. For now, we don't have any events that exceed this threshold. However, every day we check the weather forecast with the federation concerned, and if it turns out that we are going to exceed that threshold, we have the option of postponing certain events, which is not the case at the moment.
And for some sports, the sun is judged to be an advantage.
Well, I'm just happy it's not raining, actually. Like, if I'm going to come here to see beach volleyball, it's better to be a little bit in the sun than, drenched in the rain, so.
Visitors to the games and commuters are being given free sun hats and fans. And the wide availability of free tap water is considered a godsend for many.
Being very smart, we have 2 bottles of water, and the water here at the games, the water here is so you can drink it from the tap. It's wonderful, and they have all the spigots around, so we're just keeping our bottles full.
Meanwhile, others have their own strategies for beating the heat.
A little water, a little beer. You need to mix both if you want to survive the night.
Muita água, protetor solar.
Lots of water, sunscreen and joy.
The good news is the heat in Paris at least is set to last only till Thursday, when temperatures will drop back to the balmy high 20s, making it an altogether more tolerable experience.
Now, many Parisians were hoping that they could earn a mint by subletting their apartments and homes during the Olympics at high prices, but not all have found takers. Hoteliers and Airbnb owners were forced to lower their prices ahead of the Games as supply outstripped demand. Joining me now is Sophie Desmazière, the founder of BureauLocaux.com. Sophie, what exactly happened? Why are we witnessing an oversupply of holiday apartments in Paris?
Yes, what happened is everybody thought every flat could be for rent, which is not the case. And also the supply has increased, and I think it has tripled. It has tripled. And the reality is that I see pictures from our flats is only high-end flats found customers. So all Parisians thought they would find people, and especially American customers. But if you want to attract American customers, you have to offer high-end flats, and that's it's not they're not so many in Paris. So maybe what we do at Romani, we have a carefully created portfolio, and we have an 80% occupancy because we offer aircon, we offer services, worth the finest hotel. But if you just have a studio and nothing special, it's very difficult. And so probably Airbnb and all Parisians, so they could do like hotel services, which is not the case.
Is it a case of greed overcoming common sense? You know, are people thinking there was a lot of money to be made here, come whatever?
You're right. And also what happened is that a year ago, everybody said, oh, you can triple, you can maybe make 4 times the normal price, but it doesn't work. At the end of the day, only the flats that were on the real good price, which is not more than 2 times the normal prices, found customers. And there was something, it was like a rumor. Yes, you will find customers, which is not the case if you offer something that is not worth the money. So now things are much better. Prices are cheap, are not as they were last year. So if you could if you had a good offer at a good price a year ago, then there were customers. But today, most Parisians, they are disappointed. They're disappointed. Again, if you offer something special, like high-end services, views, breathtaking views, then you have customers. And if you stay for a week or more, it's a reality that it is very pleasant to stay within a flat because you have much more space than in a hotel bedroom. You can cook for yourself, or you can have a chef coming, which is something that has to be organized by specialists because it's not easy to find a chef during the Olympics. So.
Yes, Sophie Desmier, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
And those are the top stories that we are covering here on France 24.
At Beijing's National Speed Skating Oval, students are doing their drills. Coach Wu Wenjin is a former national team short track skater.
I currently have about 60 to 70 students ranging from 3 to over 70 years old.
Prior to the 2022 Beijing Winter Games, this venue was the site of the 2008 Summer Olympics field hockey ground as well as archery range. They were torn down to make way for what it is now, Asia's largest speed skating arena with a capacity of up to 12,000 spectators. For 2 years it's been open to the public, bringing ice skating to the masses. The games themselves inspired many parents to get their kids into the sport.
We are blessed as ordinary citizens to be able to experience skating in such a world-class venue. It brings us great joy.
With its new facilities, Beijing aims to grow winter sports into a $100 billion industry by 2025. For Coach Wu, the 2022 Games forged a career path for her to teach her passion.
Before the Winter Olympics, there were very few children in Beijing who learned to skate, especially short-track speed skating. They all learned figure skating and ice hockey. Afterwards, more and more retired athletes like us came here and everyone's level improved.
Although China repurposed several venues when it played host a second time, this skating stadium is one of 7 new installations made for the winter edition. Another is Shougang Park. If it looks like the scene of a science fiction movie, it's because for several years it was an abandoned industrial park, once home to the most advanced steel mill in China and a key contributor to urban smog. Factories were relocated before the Summer Olympics to battle pollution. Not until a decade later was it earmarked for the Winter Games. Do Guanglu is an architect and was part of the team that designed the big air stadium and surrounding areas.
When we came, it was in the summer. We heard the cicadas and birds and other small animals. It was a strange feeling to have at an industrial site. There was this ecological contrast, which was very interesting. At the time, there were a lot of photography enthusiasts in Beijing who liked coming.
The Shougang project was billed as a rebirth, highlighting the city's industrial past and built to last.
People from Beijing don't just come to see the ramp and leave. If you look around at the people right now, they think it's a great environment. They like to come here for a walk and typically come for a picnic or a stroll.
The ramp has become a part of the landscape. The world's first and only permanent big air jump sits empty, though, for months at a time. Despite this, some say such venues have had a positive impact.
The Beijing Olympic Games 2022 has utilized a lot of policies and approaches to ensure 100% renewable energy use for all of the venues. We also noticed that there are a lot of new technologies and facilities used in this game, not only to fulfill its sustainable goal of the game, but also survive and support the green development of the region.
But there have been environmental and sustainability concerns over one particular venue. Situated 90 kilometers northwest of Beijing, the site of the Alpine events was torn out of what was a core area of a protected nature reserve with little to no snow. The Yanqing Alpine Center requires hundreds of fan-powered snow guns to produce the powder needed to ski.
It's a very energy-intensive way to produce such snow in order to just host the game, and it's also could cause some pollution problems if that we don't know if there's any chemical chemical elements within the production of during the process of production such snow.
Environmentalists aren't just concerned about artificial snow. During both the Winter and Summer Games, the Chinese government employed cloud seeding technology, which involves dispersing chemicals into the clouds to control when and where it rains and flush out dirty skies. One thing Beijing couldn't control, though, was the political fallout of hosting the international event. In 2022, countries such as the US, the UK and Australia staged a diplomatic boycott due to human rights concerns, whilst Russian President Vladimir Putin travelled to Beijing for the opening ceremony. And so, the Winter Games also became the backdrop of a warming friendship between Beijing and Moscow. It was then when Presidents Xi and Putin signed their no-limits partnership deal, just weeks before Moscow launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
The latest developments from a continent that's constantly changing. Daily reports, interviews with influential newsmakers and personalities, analysis from our journalists in the studio, all the news from Africa. Watch Eye on Africa, presented by Georgia Calvin-Smith on France 24 and France24.com.
24, your window on the world.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
The history of our world is ever-changing. The flow of information is constantly increasing. We cover all subjects. We verify. We commit. On the ground, in all circumstances, to anticipate the future by understanding the present. We are with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. France 24, an alternative look at the news.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Hello and welcome to Paris Direct. I'm Annette Young. Let's take a look at what's making news this hour. And in a significant move, France has recognised Morocco's sovereignty over the disputed Western Sahara. It's been seen as a blow to the pro-independence Polisario Front, which represents the indigenous population in the region. Also, the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez set to testify as a witness in a judicial investigation into an alleged corruption and influence peddling against his wife. Sarah Morris is standing by for us in Madrid. And on Friday, it was all about the rain. Now on day 4 of the Olympics, it's a mini heat wave with highs of 35 degrees Celsius expected to impact both athletes and fans. This, as the male triathlon planned for today, has been postponed over concerns about water quality in the River Seine.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 2-year-old boy dies while playing in an inflatable pool. Cricket West Indies announces return of Deandra Doughton to international cricket. Regionally, battery energy storage systems coming to Barbados. And internationally, 6-week abortion ban takes effect in Iowa. Now for the details. Police are investigating the death of a 2-year-old boy who died while playing in an inflatable swimming pool. The deceased has been identified as Kamarian Wilson of Upper Erica Street, Rock City, Laventille. Police were told that yesterday afternoon, young Kamarian and other children, including a 12-year-old, were said to be playing in a plastic blow-up pool in the backyard of the home of a relative along Upper Eric Street. At the time, the supervising adult was said to be in the kitchen cooking. Around 2:40 p.m., the older boy alerted the adults at the home that young Kamarian was not breathing. Upon checking, they found the boy unresponsive in the pool. An alarm was raised and young Kamarian was rushed to the Port of Spain General Hospital. However, he was soon pronounced dead. A team of officers from the Homicide Bureau, as well as the Port of Spain Division led by Inspector Jerry, responded. Statements are expected to be taken from the parents of the young boy as well as others who were present. A post-mortem has been ordered in keeping with the investigatory process. However, police suspect that young Camarion may have drowned. Corporal Cromwell is continuing inquiries. More on this as it becomes available. St. John's Antigua Cricket West Indies is delighted to announce that Deandra Dottin has decided to come out of retirement and will be available for selection to represent the West Indies women's international cricket team once again. In a heartfelt letter to CWI, Dottin expressed her enthusiasm to return to the game, stating representing West Indies in international cricket has always been a matter of great pride and passion for me. Deandra Dottin, who will lead the Trinbago Knight Riders women's team for the third consecutive year in the upcoming WCPL tournament, last played for West Indies in 2022. She has 270 international matches across ODI and T20I. In 2010, she scored the first women's T20I century. Last month, MCC awarded Dottin with honorary life membership of the club. West Indies women will have a camp in August 2024. The players will also be engaged in the CPL next month. The next international assignment will be the T20 World Cup in Bangladesh from October 2nd to the 19th, 2024. Regionally, Barbados is a step closer to launching its first procurement project for battery energy storage systems to support the grid and unlock stalled solar PV connections. The Ministry of Energy and Business is currently hosting a 3-day procurement design workshop with key stakeholders to discuss and make critical decisions with regarding to procuring battery energy storage systems. Barbados has reached the maximum capacity of the electric grid, and the Barbados Light and Power Company has been advising that it is unable to connect homeowners and residential PV systems to the grid without the addition of storage. The workshop is the culmination of the outputs of a consortium of experts in storage systems who began supporting Barbados at the beginning of 2024 to address the gridlock challenge and advance the renewable energy transition. In many ways, this is a watershed moment that many have been waiting for. Internationally, a law that bans almost all abortions after 6 weeks has taken effect in the U.S. state of Iowa. The legislation allows the procedure until early signs of cardiac activity can be detected in a fetus or embryo, with exceptions in cases of rape, incest, fetal abnormalities, and when the mother's life is in danger. The Republican-enacted ban was blocked after its passage last year before being upheld by the state's highest court last month. It is among the most restrictive policies to be enforced since the Americans lost the national right to abortion access 2 years ago. Well, that's your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Advice, help, pointers, tips. Sometimes, when unsolicited, they're not necessarily welcome. Sometimes you might get an idea from a random stranger that might be the most brilliantly on-the-mark solution that you would have never come up with otherwise. And we are in a society which our leaders generally don't like to take unsolicited advice. However, we also complain about the fact that both sides don't come together to hash it out, to talk it out, to pool their resources. In this case, primarily, not financial resources. Your assumptions on that are your own, but rather intellectual resources. Your assumptions on that may or may not be warranted depending on how far you want to go with your assumptions. Now, strictly speaking, of course, all politicians would have their own intellectual capacity, regardless of what your criticisms for them are or are not. But something interesting happened with regards to passing on advice. One UNC senator decided to give some pointers to the new minister in the Ministry of National Security. And these pointers are things like talk to the police. As it pertains to the situation with respect to their resources, which would lead to an audit for both